Japan Up Close.
My name is Andrew Dewit. I work as a professor in the Department of Economic Policy Studies at Rikkyo University. I teach comparative public policy and local public finance. Both of those have an intimate connection with urban resilience, which has been a focus of my research and teaching for roughly the past 15 years. The word resilience has to do with infrastructure and societies in general being able to absorb damage from some kind of disaster and then rebound quickly. And one of the reasons it has become such a keyword for our age is that, of course, climate hazards are becoming worse and worse. And simultaneously, of course, challenges, like inequality and so forth, challenges to the larger societal resilience have also become, quite prominent. And so you have a great deal of interest in resilience, and particularly holistic resilience, meaning resilience of infrastructures, hard infrastructures, and then soft infrastructures, meaning, people and governance and legal systems and so forth. Domestically, if you look within Japan, there's of course, differences in the level of disaster resilience. Tokyo is quite resilient thanks to, massive investments in infrastructure, for example, underground, the massive underground storage tanks that is actually a focus of sightseeing tours. Whereas, for example, up in Tohoku, one of the railways up there that had been reconstructed and was reopened in March of this year was unfortunately a good deal of it, 70% of it, was damaged by flooding. The level of resilience is not uniform nationwide. It tends to be higher in areas with higher density of population and assets, which stands to reason. Another example of, susceptibility to disaster risks was seen in, for example, in Nagano prefecture when, one of the bullet train depots was inundated. And it turns out that there are roughly 30 depots throughout the country, of which about half are at risk of flooding. 20, 30 years ago, these kinds of disaster risks were simply not on the radar, whereas now they've manifested themselves with a great deal of ferocity. The thing that Japan is doing that makes it distinct from other peer countries in particular is integrating urban infrastructures, meaning transport infrastructure, waterworks, power systems. All of those kinds of critical infrastructures are seen as a system of systems. So you integrate them in order to maximize their resilience. At the same time, you integrate planning regimes that ordinarily were siloed, like you had energy plans, environmental plans, etc. Now those are integrated as well because you're integrating the systems that used to be, that the planning regimes used to be siloed through. Once you integrate the infrastructures, you have to integrate the planning regimes, which means, of course, that you have to get central agencies and subnational governments working together because they're all, part of the governance structure that oversees these things. And what makes Japan really distinct is not just, in integration, which is, a lot of countries are trying to do that, but the multi-level integration, meaning that the national government, the regional governments, and the local governments are all part of this. If you looked at the meteorological charts of the size of, Typhoon 19 or Hagibis, it was just huge. And it hit, one of the world's, actually the world's largest megacity, and one of the world's most densely populated areas. It hit it almost direct. Tokyo came very, very close to flooding, right? And that's recognized by the, the government, right, and the larger circle of the civil engineers and so forth. They really got a shock, and because of this shock, you can already see the mechanisms, within the civil engineering community and so forth. They're already at work. Identifying areas where there was, unanticipated weakness, where they need to, for example, bolster their engineering standards, and that kind of, work is already underway. There's a national resilience planning regime that's been in place since 2014, very well financed, very well integrated. The diffusion of local national resilience plans among the municipalities was quite low until September. In September, you had about 300, roughly 300, confirmed and pending local national resilience plans among the municipalities. And then within 1 month, from September the 1st to October the 1st, you had a tripling of these local national resilience plans. When you look at the ones that are already signed off, as well as those in process. A tripling of local national resilience plans within 1 month. That's really quite an astounding statistic. Well, Japan is the global leader on disaster risk reduction. And that's why, the United Nations disaster risk reduction programs are all named after Japanese cities or regions. The first one is the Yokohama framework. The second one is the Hyogo framework. Now the third one from 2015 to 2030 is the Sendai framework on disaster risk reduction. This is the key to Japan's engagement with the rest of the world through the UN, is disaster risk reduction. So Japan's a star in that category.
Japan up close.